I woke up to the sound of my name whispered in the dark. Ellie. It was soft, like a breath caught in the wind, but it came from inside my room. My heart slammed against my chest as I sat up, eyes darting through the shadows of our new house on Elm Street. The air felt heavy, like someone was watching me, but the room was empty. I was alone, or so I thought. My name is Ellie Harper, a 24-year-old graphic design student who moved to the small town of Fairview, Texas, last month with my parents and younger brother, Max. We'd left Dallas for a fresh start after Dad lost his job, and Mom found a cheap, sprawling Victorian house on the edge of town. It was a steal, she said, a 3-story relic with creaking floors and stained glass windows. Built in 1892. The realtor mentioned it had been empty for years, but she didn't say why. I should have known something was off when I saw the faded "For Sale" sign half buried in the overgrown yard, or when the neighbors avoided eye contact as we unloaded boxes. But I was too busy sketching ideas for my portfolio to care, until that whisper woke me. It was 2:17 a.m. on a humid September night in 2025, and the house was silent except for the faint hum of cicadas outside. My room was on the 3rd floor, a cramped attic space with slanted ceilings and a single window overlooking the street. I flicked on my phone's flashlight, the beam trembling as I swept it across the room. Nothing. Just my unpacked boxes, a thrift store desk, and the lumpy mattress I was sleeping on. But the air felt wrong, thick, like I was breathing through a wet cloth. I told myself it was just a dream, but my skin prickled, and my stomach churned with a dread I couldn't shake. The next morning, I found Max in the kitchen, pale as a ghost, stirring his cereal without eating. He was 12, all gangly limbs and messy brown hair, usually a chatterbox. But today, he was quiet. "You hear anything last night?" I asked, pouring coffee to steady my nerves. He looked up, eyes wide, like someone saying your name. My cup froze halfway to my mouth. "Yeah," he whispered. "It came from the basement." The basement. I hadn't been down there yet. It was a damp, cavernous space with a dirt floor and exposed beams, accessible through a creaky door in the back of the house. Mom had warned us to stay out until Dad could check for mold, but Max said he'd heard noises, soft thumps, like footsteps every night since we moved in. I laughed it off, telling him it was just the house settling, but my voice sounded hollow even to me. I didn't tell him about the whisper. I didn't want to scare him, or admit I was scared. Fairview was a sleepy town, the kind where everyone knew each other's business, but no one talked about the house on Elm Street. I'd done some digging online after we moved in, curious about its history. In 1896, a family called the Warrens lived here, a mother, father, and their 8-year-old daughter, Clara. They were well liked, according to old newspaper clippings, until Clara vanished one night. The official story was she ran away, but rumors swirled about foul play. Some said her father, Thomas Warren, had a temper. Others whispered about a stranger seen lurking near the house. The case was never solved, and the Warrens left town a year later. The house sat empty for decades, passing through owners who never stayed long. By the time we bought it, it was practically a local legend, though no one warned us directly. That's what bothered me most, the silence. That afternoon, I decided to explore the house. If Max was hearing things, I needed to know why. I started in the basement, armed with my phone and a flashlight. The door groaned as I pushed it open, revealing a steep staircase that disappeared into darkness. The air smelled of earth and something sour, like old wine. Each step creaked under my weight, and my pulse thudded in my ears. At the bottom, the flashlight beam revealed a maze of wooden crates, rusted tools, and cobwebs so thick they looked like curtains. In the far corner, half covered by a tarp, was a dollhouse. It was a miniature replica of our house, same gabled roof, same arched windows, same wraparound porch. The detail was uncanny, down to the chipped paint on the shutters and the tiny brass knocker on the front door. I knelt beside it, my fingers brushing the smooth wood. It was heavy, probably handmade, and old enough to belong to Clara's time. But what made my breath catch was the interior. Tiny furniture filled the rooms, a kitchen table with 4 chairs, a rocking chair by a fireplace, even a staircase spiraling up to the attic. And in the attic room, a small wooden figure lay on a bed, its painted face turned toward the window. It looked like me. My hands shook as I backed away. This wasn't just a toy. It felt alive, like it was watching me. I stumbled upstairs, slamming the basement door behind me, and told myself I was overreacting. But that night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house sounded like footsteps. Every shadow felt like it was moving. Around midnight, I heard it again, Ellie. This time, it came from below, clear and deliberate, like a child's voice calling me to play. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just lay there, clutching my blanket, praying it would stop. The next day, I told Mom and Dad about the dollhouse. Mom thought it was charming, a relic from the house's past. Dad promised to haul it out for a garage sale. But when we went to the basement, it wasn't there. The tarp was folded neatly in the corner, but the dollhouse was gone. We searched every inch of the basement, then the house, but it was nowhere. Max swore he hadn't touched it, and I believed him. He looked as freaked out as I felt. That's when I started noticing other things. Objects moved when no one was looking. A coffee mug on the counter 1 minute, on the table the next. My sketchbook, left open to a blank page, had faint pencil marks I didn't make, like someone had tried to draw. And every night, the whispers grew louder, always saying my name, always from the basement. I started researching Clara Warren obsessively. The local library had microfiche records, and I spent hours scrolling through grainy articles. One mentioned a neighbor who saw Clara playing with a dollhouse the day she disappeared. Another quoted a pastor who claimed the Warrens' house was cursed by grief. I found a photo of Clara pale, with dark curls and a shy smile, holding a doll that looked eerily like the figure I'd seen in the dollhouse. My stomach twisted. Was the dollhouse hers? And if it was, where had it gone? 2 weeks after we moved in, things got worse. Max started sleepwalking, always toward the basement door. One night, I caught him standing there, eyes glassy, muttering, "She wants to play." I shook him awake, and he burst into tears, saying he'd seen a girl in a white dress holding a dollhouse. "She looked like the picture you showed me," he sobbed. "Clara," my blood ran cold. I didn't sleep that night or the next. I kept my door locked, but it didn't help. The whispers followed me, seeping through the walls, sometimes forming words like "find me" or "look closer." Shadows flickered in my peripheral vision, gone when I turned to look. Once, I saw a small handprint on my window, too high for Max to reach, too small to be mine. Desperate, I posted about it on X, asking if anyone in Fairview knew about the house. Most replies were jokes or spam, but one user, at Elm Street Truth, sent me a private message. "Get out. That house takes what it wants." They claimed to be a former resident who'd lived there in the 90s. They said they'd found a dollhouse in the basement, too, and it moved things before it disappeared. They left after their sister started sleepwalking, just like Max. The message ended with a warning, "Don't look in the mirrors." I laughed it off. Mirrors? Really? But my skin crawled. We had an old, tarnished mirror in the hallway, its surface cloudy but oddly reflective. I'd avoided it since we moved in, not sure why. Now, I couldn't stop thinking about it. That night, I stood in front of the mirror, heart pounding. My reflection looked normal at first. Tired eyes, messy blonde hair, but then it flickered. For a split second, I saw Clara standing behind me, her face pale, her eyes black and hollow. I screamed, stumbling back, but when I looked again, she was gone. My reflection was just me, shaking, sweat beading on my forehead. I covered the mirror with a sheet and ran to my room, locking the door. But the house felt alive now, its walls creaking like laughter, its shadows stretching toward me. I knew I had to find the dollhouse. It was the key to everything. I tore through the house, checking every closet, every corner, until I ended up back in the basement. The air was colder than before, the darkness thicker. My flashlight flickered, casting jagged shadows on the walls. And there, in the same corner as before, was the dollhouse. It hadn't been there yesterday. I froze, my breath catching as I noticed something new. The tiny attic room now had two figures, me on the bed and a smaller figure standing beside it, holding a doll. Clara. I don't know why I did it, but I reached out and touched the dollhouse. The moment my fingers brushed the wood, the basement door slammed shut above me. The flashlight died, plunging me into darkness. And then I heard Clara giggling, her voice echoing like it was coming from everywhere. "You found me," she said, and the air grew so cold it burned my lungs. I fumbled for my phone, its weak light barely cutting through the dark. The dollhouse was glowing faintly, its windows lit with a sickly yellow hue. Inside, the figures were moving, not just shifting, moving, like they were alive. The figure of me sat up on the bed, its head turning toward the smaller figure, which was now holding a tiny knife. I ran, tripping up the stairs, pounding on the locked basement door until my fists bled. "Mom! Dad!" I screamed, but no one answered. The house was silent except for Clara's giggles, growing louder, closer. I turned, and there she was, a shadowy figure at the bottom of the stairs, her white dress glowing faintly, her face hidden in darkness. She held the dollhouse in her arms, its windows pulsing like a heartbeat. "Play with me," she whispered, and the door finally gave way. I stumbled into the kitchen, gasping, and found Mom and Dad there, staring at me like I was crazy. Max was crying, saying he'd seen Clara again. We packed our bags that night and left, staying at a motel until we could find a new place. But the dollhouse wasn't done with us. When we went back to grab the last of our things, it was sitting on the porch, pristine, like it had never been touched. Dad burned it in the backyard, but I swear I heard Clara's voice in the crackle of the flames, saying my name one last time. We moved back to Dallas, but I'm not the same. I check every corner, every shadow, waiting for her to find me again. I don't know what Clara wanted, but I think I found the truth in an old article I dug up after we left. In 1896, Clara's father confessed to a priest that he'd locked her in the basement during a fit of rage. She starved down there, alone, clutching her dollhouse. The article didn't say why he did it, only that he died in an asylum, raving about a house that watches. I think Clara's still trapped in that dollhouse, her spirit tied to it, replaying her final days, pulling others into her game. And I think she chose me because I found it, because I touched it. I'm sharing this because I need to know I'm not alone. Has anyone out there experienced something like this? Seen a dollhouse that shouldn't exist? Heard a voice that knows your name? Drop your stories in the comments. I'm reading everyone. Maybe together we can figure out what Clara wants or how to make her stop.